Let's start off with what we heard from Kirby Smart, guys. This was not about a bunch of install stuff. This was about finding out who wanted to be there, who was tough enough, who wanted to grit this thing out. Guys, it was almost 110 degrees. I don't know what kind of mind you have if you want to be down there, but that's why you come play at Georgia, right?
I talked to somebody that was there, and I would say this person has been to many, 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 many games at Sanford Stadium and many, many probably scrimmages under the staff. And he said it was the hottest by far, not even close on Saturday, what it felt like. He said that he was in the shade and people just couldn't breathe. It was so hot. But, Kirby Smart loved that, to get those guys lathered up and to, find out who wants to be there. It kind of hit that wall a little bit. They've been staying at the Georgia Center there together as team, and you get to a point, man, where the days start running together. You're tired. Everybody starts feeling a little bit sorry for themselves, and next thing you know, Kirby drags you over to Sanford Stadium, and it's important. I mean, it's an important day. So, the culture at Georgia. You know how Georgia's been built on toughness and physicality, and then you throw open that the old heat factor. I can imagine there was a lot of tape that be evaluated, based off, hey, who can play through this, because in September in the state of Georgia, it's still hot.
And they've got 5 games in September this year with that Auburn game coming early, a road test there. And like he said, 4 or 5 of these games, they're expecting the heat. And so, like we've said, that was a test yesterday, really kind of the end of their traditional fall camp setting. They're still in preseason practice, but with school starting this week, they'll move out of the Georgia Center. They'll move into their dorms and their traditional living situations, and it'll be like the season. They'll practice in the afternoons, and they've been practicing in the afternoons, but that's part of what makes these scrimmages a little bit tougher is the fact that they're at noon, 1 o'clock, lunchtime when it's the hottest there. So that he wanted to see them push through. I didn't sense that he was all too pleased with the way that, not necessarily the way that they pushed through, but the way that they performed. He did say that he felt like the leadership was there, but the execution wasn't necessarily there.
I'll say this too, Palmer, as you mentioned, school starts this week. So that enables Georgia to go to the 20-hour rule. So they only get 20 hours. Now it's kind of unlimited. They can be there all day watching tape, doing this, having meetings. The day school starts, they go to the 20-hour per week rule. So that will kind of change things and make the scrimmage next Saturday that much more important, because I just think the 20-hour rule is something we don't talk a lot about. You're right, Palmer. They'll go right into the season-type practices beginning this week.
Player groups, position groups, Kirby said he wanted to see more out of or play better. The quarterbacks and every skill player around the quarterbacks, it seemed like kind of got every best shot from the defense that they could have wanted. And that's typically how things go when you start these scrimmages out. The defense always seems to have a leg up.
Yeah, somebody said on our board before the scrimmage, any guesses on who, quote unquote, wins the day. And I came out and said, look, I thought it was going to be the defense. Not only do they return, so many key pieces from last year's group, and that's not saying that the offense doesn't, but the most key pieces on the offense, they don't. Quarterback and offensive coordinator, you've got some turnover there. And so it takes a little bit more time for the offense to gel. It takes – that's why those summer 7-on-7 sessions are so important, and the player-led, off-season workouts. It's important for those guys that they are getting those reps together so that when they do put the pads on like they did this past week, that there isn't all that much ground to make up. It's a lot harder to be on the same page offensively, and connecting, when you're passing the ball around, you got to be in the right spots versus defense. You can make up for it with a little bit of athleticism and a lot of effort there.
Yeah, I think you just listen. We've all played high school football, so I'm not discounting college football in this program, but everybody that probably knows the defense is ahead at this point. It just is what it is, and then the factors that you just mentioned kind of put that further away, even with that quarterback and an offensive coordinator, Mike Bobo, those types of things. And you just kind of understand, even NFL, man. I mean, I got a chance to watch the Falcons practice 2 weeks ago, and the offense it's timing. There's so much to do with these things. And, it's not panic mode season, but I will say this, I'm not going to sugarcoat the importance of this next scrimmage. And this scrimmage, they will kind of, this one, from talking to people inside that building, this will kind of start the first depth chart. When they break this tape down from yesterday, I'm sure they did that today. When they got done with that, they kind of had a little piece of what they're looking at depth chart wise. But this time next Sunday night, we're on this show. We won't have it, but Georgia will have an internal depth chart and how they're going to go towards the first part of the season. Who can play, who can help us right now, and who's going to get those reps. Because if we talked about this 20-hour week, that things start getting real tight. So, this is an important week for Georgia, but for all these players that are, right now in between those 2s and 3s, this is a massive week. But not going to sugarcoat it. You hear the things about quarterback, and I don't think anybody really took a step forward yesterday. There were some highs and lows. I think the biggest probably, if I were to sit down with Kirby Smart and ask him tonight, and he would say it publicly, I would think probably the most disappointing thing for him was the drops. I think we all talked to everybody. There was a lot of drops yesterday. There were some third down drops. There was a drop on a play that was kind of wide open, and the ball fell into the defender's arms because of it, and it wasn't the quarterback's fault. So that kind of surprised you a little bit, but it's also early, and you still think that this receiving staff and this receiving core and this skill group is going to be something that's going to be a strength for Georgia. But early on in that first fall scrimmage, the wide receivers and what I heard, they've got to fix those drops.
Well, I mean, hell, you watch the scrimmage video that they put out, and it's right there for you. Arian Smith, the ball goes off his hands and is intercepted by a defender there. So, there's no hiding the fact that happened. Kirby said it. They showed it. And, going back to what you were saying about, this next scrimmage being so important and this time next week, probably Georgia knowing what they're looking like going into the season. Kirby was asked about, preparing for that first game and the fact that it's not a marquee matchup like it has been the last couple of years. And he said, look, I'm not concerned about that. Even, no matter who we were playing, we wouldn't talk about them until, 9 days before is when he circled. And so I just went back and counted. That would be the Thursday, the 24th, 2 days before that final scrimmage that they'll do, which is more of a walkthrough than it is, an actual hard hitting scrimmage. That next week, this week will be big for, still making push on the depth chart, but that next week will be, starting to get the gears rolling towards the season.
Yep.
UT Martin, you've been warned. You got
Skyhawks.
a few days. You got a few days until you're on Kirby's radar. Speaking of the depth chart, just the injury housekeeping news and notes here. The running back room, of course, Kendall Milton and Branson Robinson working to get back. Raylan Wilson, I guess, was the one injury nugget that we got out of this scrimmage in particular. Kirby said a knee hyperextension. Is that right?
Yeah, hyperextended knee there for the freshman 5-star.
And then Smile Munden, we knew about, still trying to get back 100%. And Kamari Lassiter, I found it interesting. Kirby said that Lassiter still got to knock a little bit of rust off after last season.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that goes to show, that there is no spot that's 100% solidified. He wants to see guys continue to develop. That we're seeing that in all these rooms. Offensive line, there's competition between, you've got 4 guys that are coming back with starting experience, but you've got probably 8 or 9 guys that they feel really confident playing. Kirby talked about that, just talking about offensive tackles and, all the different guys that have rotated around. But yeah, on the injury front, Kendall Milton, hamstring in that running back room, did not scrimmage. Branson Robinson was back on the field for drill work last time we got to see. That would have been last Tuesday. But Kirby said he's not quite full speed, not back scrimmaging. Andrew Paul, they're still easing back in a little bit. So that running back room, you heard Cash Jones, Savon Clark, some other walk-on names there. I think that they're being really careful there with Dejan Edwards. Ra Thomas, wide receiver room, somebody who's been dealing with, he had a hamstring tweak, is back. has been practicing, but again, they're being careful there. Dan Jackson, somebody that battled a hamstring early in fall camp. He scrimmaged, but not as much as Kirby said he would have liked to. Couple of guys battling some heat-related illnesses, Austin Blasky and Julian Humphrey. Chris Peel, freshman corner there, battling turf toe. And then, like we said, Lassiter and Munden and Wilson, a couple of guys that they're going to be counting on defensively. Foot sprain, I think was foot sprain is what Kirby said on Kamari. Obviously, we know it's a foot-related thing with Smile Munden, and then Raylan Wilson, hyperextended knee. They did not think there was any ligament damage there. So, they feel optimistic that that's not all too significant of an injury, but didn't know a timetable then. Oh, and Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, also a foot injury. So there's your injury report.
I tell you, man, I get text messages all the time about those shoes. Is it the Nike shoes? And I have no idea, but boy, I tell you what, man, they have a lot of foot injuries. And yep. I know privately, I talk to a lot of staffs, and there's is it the turf? Who knows? Is it turf? Is it grass? Is it the shoes? A lot of colleges are seeing significant foot injuries, not just Georgia. Don't know, man, but I know this: University of Georgia, they get 2 or 3 a year, and that's something that way out of my pay scale or experience. But you got to wonder what's going on with what is it, because it is right now. It's kind of rampant through college football.
Yeah, that could be an investigative piece right there, Palmer.
I don't know if we want to jump on to tackling Phil Knight, but
yeah,
listen. I don't know. I have people all the time text me. Is it the they don't wear the high tops? It's not the Nike Sharks that I grew up with that were about mid ankle that weighed 60 pounds. We never had foot injuries, but
no,
I just don't know what it is. And I get people. I had somebody text me today say, "Man, what is going on with these foot injuries?" And I said, it's not just in Georgia now. I mean, you scale around the country and see the foot injuries. So, kind of makes you wonder. Who knows?
And it's not just Nike either. I mean, you look and you hear complaints about schools that are wearing Adidas or Under Armour. It's honestly, if I had to guess, it's just the wear and tear that the amount of stress that these guys are putting on it, working out, and doing exercises that put that much pressure on their feet 365 days a year.
And they practice more. I mean, they don't practice 3 a days, but it's more football year round. So
yeah, the 7-on-7s and all that stuff. It's
could be that.
Yeah.
Stress on that too.